Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for yet again another Film Fanatic show. It is 9:26 here on a what is today? Tuesday morning. Beautiful day. Weather has been just spectacular. So yeah, I been uploading a lot of new videos. I've been setting most of the newer videos as premieres. It's just been fun to kind of break up when things are going to be, shown and just trying to, never want to get too monotonous. I'm always trying to bring variety to the channel and things like that. So it's always fun. So the other thing is too, I'm in the midst now of, I'm setting up an interview segment with a friend who, Spencer Roulard, who is a really talented guy who does well, he runs sound for lots of events. He's a really great sound guy, but he's also a very talented musician. He just put out a self-titled, well, not a self-titled album, um, but he put out an electronic album, and it's really good. It's a record that he's been working on for a few years, and it's very, very cool. And so I'm in the midst of putting together an interview segment with him for that. So stay tuned for that. That'll probably be happening pretty soon, and some info around that. Also, on the quantum front, it's been a really so far this summer, this year, it's been really great. We've feel real fortunate. We've had a lot of shows this summer and this year. It's been really really fun. I When it comes to my band Quantum, my favorite thing around it is our gigs. Like I really love playing gigs more than anything when it comes to that band. We're just in general. When you say you're a musician or whatever you want to call it, like I think what that entails. For me, I really my favorite part of being involved with music is our gigs. And the reason is because like I try to spend as much time as I can practicing, working on music and writing music and all those kinds of things. And but for me it's like live playing live, you don't have necessarily a safety net. It's kind of a testing ground for new ideas, material, trying to always better yourself, trying to always improve because I feel like you never stop learning. And when it comes to the quantum stuff, like I really enjoy that aspect of it the most because I always feel like when it comes to quantum with all of our original material that we have, for me it's like the ultimate kind of testing ground to see if material, carries some weight and there and the song or songs that I'm playing, whether for me it's like what it tells me if the song is saying something or not. If it just kind of just doesn't really have an impact on people or just doesn't feel like it has any substance, especially when it comes to live, then I usually like discard the tune or rework it or just kind of put it on the back burner. Because it's one thing to be in the practice space, working on the song and you kind of get lost in your own little head and you feel like, okay, this is sounding pretty good, this is ready to go. But when you take it to the live stage, it's a whole different thing because, you want to, I mean, really music and playing music is about, for me it's like it's storytelling. And if you're telling a good story or something engaging, it's going to interest the other people and then also be you know uh, great for the storyteller, for the person telling the story. You'll feel connected. So with quantum it's like that's to me I always try to the last handful of shows I'm always mixing, trying to mix in new tunes to our sets. Like there's songs that we that we've been playing for a very, very long time. And we'll have those depending on the vibe of the space. For instance, like we played a couple of shows this summer where we played the the most recent show that we played, which was last or the weekend before last. We played at Hey Sailor, and we were the first group to play, and it was kind of a mellow dinner crowd vibe in the beginning. So we decided or at least I decided to play more ambient, mellow stuff, and then we debuted a new tune that we never really played before, and and then we eventually kind of built the set into where it was a little bit more dance oriented. And then previously to that show, we played at this kind of big party, and that was more of a festive kind of dance party thing. So I played a little bit more of the heavier stuff. So it's always about reading the crowd. I don't. That's why I don't usually go into gigs with a set list. I usually try to. Usually when I'm in the mode of getting ready for shows, for quantum shows, what I typically do is I'm always working on that material. What I'll do is I'll like play play a set basically when I'm rehearsing. I'll run through a bunch of tunes and treat it like it's a live performance where I'm trying to like play, maybe five tunes or four tunes or what have you back to back to kind of simulate that live thing. And I'm basically always kind of working on sets. Usually when I'm in kind of gig mode, like where I'm getting ready for gigs or shows, that's what I spend pretty much all the time. All my time is just working on sets and getting sets together. When it comes to like where we don't have any shows coming up and there's a little bit of downtime, I'll typically, you know, always work on tunes and kind of tweak them. But if I have a kernel of an idea for a new tune, that's usually what I'll focus on. And I'll get into like songwriting mode and I won't really think about, oh, I need to run all of these tunes. So it's really, I kind of wear different hats for that. So it's a fun process. It's a lot of work and it takes me a long time to kind of, figure out ideas for songs, but I really, really enjoy it. As far as Quantum goes, we have a few more shows coming up. We have another show. We did a show earlier, actually a few weeks ago, where we played at Opera House Video with my friend Ronnie, and we had a really great time. It was a really fun show, and we did a kind of this round robin idea where we kind of traded back and forth. So Ronnie and I are going to do another show with that same kind of concept coming up next month in August. So stay tuned for that. There'll be a bunch of promotion leading up to that show, and then I will, and that's going to be a daytime show. And then another show that we got coming up, we're going to be doing a quantum show at the Camden Library Amphitheater, which is a gig that I really, really love. And we've been doing that gig for since kind of the inception or creation of quantum. Like we've always been doing this gig, and it's always been fun. We usually do it on a Sunday. This time it's going to be on a Saturday, I believe. And we basically play for a couple hours outside in the Camden Amphitheater. And if anybody's ever been down to the Camden Amphitheater or hasn't been, it's such a beautiful location. It's one of the most, you know, I think it's, locally it's it's the most incredible, it's such a beautiful library. But the grounds are just amazing. And it's right on the ocean. It has this amazing amphitheater, and there's a nice little kind of forest area, if you will, right behind the amphitheater, and it's right on the ocean. It's got great natural acoustics. I have so many great memories of playing gigs there. We've had a lot of really fun shows there, and we've kept that gig for almost 10 years, which is crazy. So looking forward to doing that. That's another one coming up. And then with the next show after that will be a big show where we're going to be playing at Blue in Portland, which is our first time playing down there, which is a really great venue. And we're going to be sharing the bill with Osmia and the Button Men. So we got some shows coming up, and so it's good times. And yeah, so and in today's show is gonna getting back to movie stuff. Again, I love going to the movies, and I always am thinking of ideas and new things to talk about. Today, I want to talk about a movie that I have done. I did do a review for it, and I'm kind of approaching this review or this video on trying to do it from a slightly different angle. And this is one of I think one of the greatest giallo films, slasher films of all time. Sergio Martino's Torso. This came out in 1973. When I was looking up some more info about this movie, I always I forgot how old this film is. Like, it's insane. 1973. I was super late to the game. I never got a chance to see this movie growing up. Again, it's old school giallo, and I kind of consider this movie a slasher movie as well. When I looked it up, a lot of people, references and people who talk about Torso really kind of refer to this as a giallo, but then also a slasher movie. And I think that's pretty true. I mean, giallo is it's real interesting because I I bought this I bought Torso a couple of years ago, and I had never seen this movie, and I had always heard about this movie, that this movie was just a legendary slasher giallo movie, like one of the best in the genre, and it really is. It's such an incredible movie. This movie is a masterpiece, and I really it really opened my this is one of those movies that really opened my eyes and really piqued my curiosity into doing more, taking a deeper dive into Italian cinema, and especially the giallo style. Growing up as a kid, I definitely there were I definitely saw giallo films, and was exposed to a lot of great Italian horror films, but I was young and I didn't, really, know, say, at the time, like what that title meant or that genre meant, what that was about. I didn't know like who Dario Argento was per se, or Lucio Fulci. I just saw a lot of these movies as a kid, and as I've gotten older, my curiosity was piqued even more. So then I've been doing research. And Torso was one of those movies I never heard about, and I heard about for years and years. It was directed by Sergio Martino, who, again, it was a director I discovered through Torso after finally buying it. And, just an incredible director, one of the great Italian directors. And Torso is, one of the greatest giallo films. It really is. And I've talked a lot about giallo movies on this channel, and I've covered a lot of giallo films. And giallo is such a unique style because it's very much an Italian style. It's very much its own thing. It's really unique. It's a combination of a lot of different influences. I was talking to somebody pretty recently about what giallo was, and I usually, and the way I usually describe what a giallo film is basically kind of the Italian version of the classic kind of British Agatha Christie story, where it's basically, in a nutshell, I feel like giallo the giallo style is essentially like a thriller, or it's like a murder mystery story, and definitely I think giallo has a massive influence from Alfred Hitchcock. They're definitely, I think giallo films are first and foremost thrillers. They typically are also very dark and very violent, and there's always a glove killer, if you will. There's always a scene of where the killer has gloves, leather gloves, and uses like various weapons to cut up bodies and kill people. Typically, it's with a knife. And there's always this air of mystery around Giallo films of where if there is a killer in the movie, they're usually you have no idea who the killer is until the very end. And Giallos typically are they have this investigative angle. There's usually always plots that involve maybe the protagonist of the story trying to investigate a series of murders that happen or disappearances. There's usually characters like police officers involved, like detectives, where they are investigating these crimes, and there's always a kind of a mysterious element. There's often this psychosexual element a lot of the times with Torso. That very much is that, like, the killer in this movie is truly a demented kind of psychosexual deviant murderous psychopath. So there's that element. Not every Giallo film necessarily has that kind of violent um, plot line or storyline, but that's a typical thing with Torso. I think it is not just a Giallo. I think it's definitely a slasher film too, because it definitely has those like slasher tropes of, like, where you have these brutal kills, you have these people or young people getting picked off, these women getting picked off one by one, and it's got that 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 aesthetic. And it's really interesting because slasher films are my favorite. It's my favorite genre when it comes to exploitation movies. And so this is definitely, I feel like Torso definitely has both of those elements. And one of those things that I always do is I always love to trace back the lineage of slasher films. And when I think about how it's evolved and how far back the slasher genre actually how far it actually goes back, it's pretty mind blowing, because I'm always discovering new films in that genre, and then if there's a style that I really like, when it comes to, like in this case, slasher films, tracing that lineage back, you're like, oh wait, this movie came out way before this movie, or this director was doing this kind of thing before this guy, and it's you kind of go down this really great rabbit hole, and for me, I am discovering that much. There's a lot more films I get turned on to that way. It opens up this door, you know, discovering new directors, and it's so awesome because it's so vast. It's kind of like this ocean of knowledge that's right there for you. I've said many times, like the first slasher movies I ever saw as a kid. And I'm pretty sure this is how it was, or what it was like for me. Definitely the two first slasher movies I ever saw was the original Friday 13th, by directed by Sean Cunningham, and then of course John Carpenter's Halloween. I mean, and that's the case for a billion other kids or other people out there. Those were the first two slasher movies I saw. And I do believe, I think, when I think about it, I think Friday the 13th was probably, I think I saw that first. And then I saw John Carpenter's Halloween. And then, of course, the 80s was the biggest decade for the slasher genre. And, you know, and I see it as a thing a lot of the times on people who are covering channels, covering slasher movies on YouTube channels, of where they'll talk about, sometimes it irks me where people will kind of stop at Halloween or the Halloween franchise, Friday 13th franchise, or they'll talk about the Nightmare on Elm Street films, which are slasher movies to a degree, but then they won't go back any further, or take a deeper dive and say other slasher films that came out during that time that were just taking it even further. And with the slasher genre, I think it's really great because it's my favorite genre. So I love to trace it back, and it's such an interesting thing of like doing that and then realizing, oh wait, there were a slew of movies and uh, things happening before those movies that influenced the Halloween franchise and Friday 13th. Most notably Black Christmas. But then Torso came out before, more or less. So, and I consider that to be a slasher film. So it's, and then you have, you know, the work of Herschel Gordon Lewis. So you trace it back even further, and so it's amazing. Um, the other thing that, and this is also put out by Blue Underground, which is one of the best, my favorite boutique labels out there, and I have a lot of Blue Underground editions. Blue Underground, of course, is uh, was created by Bill Luswig, one of the greatest exploitation directors, slasher directors. He directed Maniac, which is my all-time favorite slasher movie of all time. That movie is just a pure fucking masterpiece. That's my favorite. That hands down is my favorite slasher movie of all time. It's the most disturbing film when in the genre. I think it's the most realistic and the most brutal, and it's just so creepy and atmospheric, and um, it's so raw. It's just like it's such a raw film and experience that you can kind of like taste it. And I think Torso is that's another trait of Giallo films is they tend to be really raw and you know they're big in scope. They look beautiful, and there's always this very distinct way that cinematography is used, the lighting, but they are Giallo films tend to be on the raw kind of side of things, which is something I'm automatically drawn to. But Blue Underground is one of the best boutique labels. I have a lot of Blue Underground titles. I think I just recently bought another one which I can't remember, which I haven't watched yet. So, but amazing. And the other thing is I did a review on this movie when I got it, but there's two different cuts on this film Torso. There's the Italian cut, and then there's the American cut. And today I'm talking about the Italian cut specifically, so it's a little bit from a different angle as far as this video. There is the American version, but I don't know, and I have this weird thing about that. I I love that a lot of these boutique labels are putting out these. I mean, it's if you're a collector, it's the it's just incredible what gets released now. The flip side of things now, which I think kind of sucks, is how well everything is fucking expensive now. It's ridiculous, but a lot of these boutique labels now, a lot of the prices for a lot of these movies have gone up, unfortunately. So it's a it's a worth it's well, it's the best habit to have, but it's an expensive habit, and so movies are very expensive now. I get some good deals still because I get everything through Bull Moose, but overall prices have gone up, unfortunately. And but with all of these editions that come out there, and typically a lot of these movies, Giallo films like with Torso, for instance, and just exploitation movies in general, technically about 85% of the movies that I've bought or that I have are technically foreign films. So you always get, you know, two different versions of the film. Like you always get the whether it's a European or Italian film, you get that version, but then there's always an American cut. And sometimes there's a difference. Sometimes there is a fundamental difference. Obviously, with the American cuts of a lot of these films, you get the dubbed version. You don't get the native language. And there's a dubbed version of that film. And there, so, and then sometimes the films are cut differently or edited differently. And I've been a fan. I always gravitate towards the European cut, or in this case, Torso. The Italian cut is the way to go. I haven't watched the American version. I've had really just one experience of a movie where I really love the American version of a film, but I generally don't really like the American cuts of a lot of these giallo films or exploitation movies. Like, they're great, and as far as being a collector, it's an awesome thing to have. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I always go back to the original director's cut because I'm like, it's always better. There's always this thing that happens. I feel like with the translation, especially when it comes to the storyline and just the length of the film, and then the editing, and even when it comes to some of the kills. Um, a lot of the times it's a little bit more, when it comes to the American version of the film, it's a little bit more, well, things are cut out. Sometimes kill scenes are cut out, and I think most 99% of the time what I see is that the storyline, when you look at the American version and say the Italian version of a film, the storyline is less cohesive when you watch the American version. It gets lost in the translation, but when you watch the director's cut or the you know original language version, it's much more of a cohesive story. That's happened to me a lot of the times. There's a Canadian movie called Siege, which is just one of the most badass movies of all time, and that's a Canadian uh, exploitation movie. But there's an American cut which is far different than the Canadian version, and it's a lot longer, but I don't like it. It like it really it doesn't have that level of intensity and suspense that the Canadian cut has, because it kind of has too much backstory and a very different kind of beginning of the film. Another film, which is another one of the greatest slasher movies of all time, is the classic Pieces, the Spanish slasher movie, which is one of the greatest slasher movies of all time. I have that. I have an amazing edition of that. But the American cut, it's the same thing. There were significant cuts when the American distributor had put out that movie, and the story is different. It feels like it doesn't have that cohesiveness. The translation gets off, and so I never go to the American version. I'm always like going for the director's cut, and the Spanish, even though, and I think it's safe to say, because I feel like since I've seen so many versions of particular films, even though I haven't seen the American cut for Torso, I still say the Spanish cut, I mean the Italian cut, is the way to go. I mean, it's definitely, this is an essential movie for your collection if you love exploitation movies, and especially giallo and slasher films. It's such a thrilling movie. Such incredible atmosphere, amazing kills, just an awesome ending. I mean, the suspense in this movie is through the roof. It really has a Hitchcockian vibe to it. I mean, Sergio Martino he's still alive, but I mean, he was one of one of the greatest, directors ever. I mean, really is. And I believe I did a show on his body of work. I have a few of his other films too, but one of the greatest, a master filmmaker. And the thing with Torso is it's a genre film, of course, but and it's super low budget in a lot of ways. It's super sleazy. It's a pretty nasty movie. It's brutal. It's super raw, but it's such a great film. I mean, I think it's like I consider this movie to be kind of like high art. Like it could be looked at in a way of where it rises above that kind of stereotype that it's just kind of trash because it's an exploitation movie. But I think this movie rises above that. It's still an exploitation movie, but I think it rises above that as being just an incredible film. I mean, really, just how well it's shot, how well it's put together, the cast, everything. And there's a pretty cool introduction on this disc of the Italian cut of Torso by Eli Roth, famous director. And he really kind of talks about that too, where, this film, is definitely a low budget kind of exploitation movie, but there's certain things about Torso that are just so incredible that it is kind of it pushes itself to the top, because it really is kind of this high art film. Amazing. It's one of my favorite Giallo films, and I mean the Italians really knew how to direct a fucking movie. So yeah, amazing movie. And again, it's something I'm always reminded of, and every time I remind myself or come across it, it always blows me away that this came out in 1973. And again, I've always said the 70s are by far my favorite decade of all time, and this is why. Torso. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.